everyone on the call right now and everyone who cannot make it will have a recording of this, and you can go back and do this over and over again. So you might notice a little box that says, got it. Just go ahead and click on that to acknowledge it. And before I kick it over to Chef Kat, I wanted to see if Jasmine from Gilda's Club wanted to say a few words.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. I just wanted to thank the world of Whirlpool. That's quite a tongue twister for us this past week. And thank you, Chef Kat, for being here. And I'm looking forward to this cooking demonstration and how to properly use my knives. And I hope you guys are too. And just thank you guys all for being here. Yes, use the chat. Feel free to use that or come off of mute. You guys rock. You know how to do it. We've been Zooming for a while at Gilda's Club.
All right. Thank you so much, Jasmine. And once again, thank you all for being here tonight. Without any further ado, though, I'm going to go ahead and toss things over to Chef Kat in the KitchenAid kitchen. Chef Kat, you ready to teach us some knife skills?
Yes, I'm ready. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you guys were able to join me tonight. As Andy said, just call me Kat. I'm going to be your instructor this evening. And I'm super excited about knife skills because we need knife skills, right? Sometimes being able to make a what usually might take you a 60-minute dish, cut that in half in 30 minutes is a game changer. And our goal this evening is, I'm not going to dive deep into knife 101 and the type of steels and cuts and all that stuff. What I really want to do is set you guys up for success for your further culinary adventures. So we're just going to go over a little bit of kind of knife safety tips 101 and kind of the basic tools that you'll need to help your lives a little bit easier when it comes to working with chef knives, as well as obviously when we get into dicing our vegetables, different type of cuts and what to really look for. So really what the overview for class is, we're going to do a quick ingredient check. I just want to make sure no one had any questions or substitutions, but everything was pretty well laid out on the packet. As far as what we're going to be working with during our class, it's going to be that celery, carrots, sweet potatoes, onions, the garlic, the kale, and the parsley, and the bread if you are making that garlic bread this evening. So that's what we're really going to be focusing on class. And as far as your tools that you're needed, especially if you are making the soup after we get off the call, unfortunately, we're going to get everything set up for the soup, but we'll end the call and you guys are going to be pretty much knee deep in making the soup, but have no fear because it takes about 30 minutes for the soup. And I promise you it's worth the wait, especially when you see the beautiful diced vegetables that you guys are going to do today. As far as your tools, like I said, refer to the packet. What we're really going to be working with together will be obviously our cutting board, chef knife, have a bowl, maybe another bowl for some scraps. I'm actually doing a little like compost here at the World of Whirlpool. So I have my little compost bin, and then a sheet tray. I know on the packet it says a half a sheet tray or a cookie tray. This is just a really cool hack that helps you prepare your dinner, your lunch, your breakfast a lot faster because we're able to kind of cut everything, lay everything out for your recipe. I'm not a huge fan of cutting one thing, adding it to the pot, and then cutting another thing and then adding that to the pot. Mistakes can happen, and that actually makes you go a little bit longer in your cooking time. So I like to get all of the tools together, get all of the ingredients together, cut everything you need to post to cut, and then that last piece is actually building your dish. I promise you, if you start working recipes like that, it's a time saver. It's less on dishes, actually, which I'm always a fan of doing less dishes. Yeah, and that's pretty much the class overview. And like I said earlier, at the end of the class, the last thing I'll be showing you is how to cut the garlic bread to those cuts that you want. But then towards the end, you should be able to start building your soup. And like Andy said, any questions, any views you might want to see, please feel free to enter into the chat. You can always also unmute yourself as well. We have a very nice tight-knit class with you guys, and that's for a purpose, right? So that way we are able to answer everyone's questions. And when it is come to the chopping session of the evening. I do have another camera that I'm gonna put, so you will be able to see an overhead closer look. The one rule I have this evening is when I am showing you how to make the first slices and dices of a vegetable, I want all eyes on the screen first, okay? So I will show you how to cut a certain vegetable, show you how to hold, what you're looking for, then I'll set you guys free. And I want you guys to obviously do what I do. I will be probably as well cutting continuously with you. The rule of the game is not to do it fast, right? We're here to learn knife skills. So take your time with your cuts, really focus on your stance, on how you're holding your knife, and trying to get consistency with your cuts. So a celery might take a little bit longer than usual, but the goal of this evening is for you to enhance the skill that you already have and just to be a little bit precise, okay? That being said, so let's go over some knife skills rules, okay? So in order to have a safe environment for your knife skills, one of the important things to have is cutting boards. There's a couple different cutting boards out there. There's wooden, plastic, Epicurean. I don't know if you guys heard about the Epicurean brand, but it's a phenomenal brand. Those cutting boards too, I really enjoy because they're dishwasher safe. So they're just really easy to kind of use it, especially if you're cutting meat or poultry or what have you. You can kind of throw it in a dishwasher. I throw mine in a dishwasher at least once a week, and I usually hand wash the times between, but I like to give it that extra dishwashing wash. And the same thing for like thicker cutting boards, wooden. It's usually like a little bit of dish soap to kind of take care of it. Plastic are good. I will say, especially if you cut a lot of meat or poultry, the one thing with plastic that you might even notice on yours is they'll start getting those knife grooves in them, and that's where bacteria essentially can start growing. So you just want to be careful on what you're using your plastic. Everybody had the idea of plastic will be great for poultry and meat, and it can and cannot be. There's a risk. So I always try personally to stick with wooden boards, or especially like I mentioned earlier, the Epicurean brand is just a great kind of between, especially with certain wooden boards, it can get a little pricey. Like the booze box, they're gorgeous, they're heavy, but they're a little bit on the pricier end. So it's just, you gotta work with what your kitchen layout is as well, right? You want to kind of be smart with it. There's no shame in having a smaller size cutting board if that's what you have. It works just as well, okay? The one thing with your cutting board is you always want to make sure you're cutting on a stable surface. So slip mat. This is technically a shelf liner, right? You can buy shelf liners anywhere. And the goal of this is to keep that board safe and still, because without it, it starts sliding around. And once you have added movements while you're slicing, it's just creating an unsafe environment. So you just want to make sure you have something underneath your cutting board. Hack alert. If you do not have a shelf liner, have no fear. If you take a piece of paper towel, wet it a little bit, put that on the bottom of your board, that moisture on that towel does the same thing. It will allow you to keep your board nice and stable, and that is what you want. Let's see, cutting boards, knife. And I will say, with the type of chef knife that you are using at home, I guess I should go back to like the size of your cutting boards. You just want to make sure your chef knife is not it's not oversized to your cutting board, if that makes sense. So if you have a really small cutting board and you have a really big knife, it won't work for your benefit. So you can go a little bit bigger. You want a couple of inches, and if you're thinking about lengthwise from your knife, just so you have enough workspace while using your knife. And I say this because my mother is a phenomenal cook, one of the best ones. But to this day, she has the most smallest cutting board that has a crack, that's old, and she uses this nice chef knife that's really big for her hand, but she's insistent, and I can't complain because the food's delicious and she's my mother. So, but that being said, you kind of want to visually just kind of prepare yourself to make good decisions when you're using your chef knife. Now, moving on from cutting boards, pretty simple, correct? Now we're going to talk about chef knives. The standard chef knife, right now I'm using the KitchenAid. It's German steel, stainless steel chef knife. It's 8 inches. As you can see, this has a nice curve to it, which is actually very helpful for when I'm slicing and dicing. But this is kind of a standard size chef knife. There are a couple brands like the German knife, Japanese knives. Every single knife has a pro and a con, to be honest. I'm not much of a knife snob. All I will say is find a knife that works for your hand, for the size of your hand, for the size of your arm, and find a chef knife that you think looks cool. I know how silly that might sound, but there are beautiful chef knives out there for a nice price that technically should be in your collection forever. And what I've noticed, or maybe it's just me, but what I've noticed is that when you allow yourself to get a chef knife that you think it's cool, or you really love the look of it, and you tend to use it more. Same thing with certain things in your kitchen, right? Because you want to use that more. So whether if it's a European blade or a Japanese blade, who cares? Get something that's that works well with the size of your hands, and that you think it's visually appealing. Obviously, price points vary, so it just depends on what you're looking for. But sometimes a chef knife is a good investment. And I like to say investment because technically you will be utilizing this chef knife for the rest of your life, correct? So just keep that in mind when you are looking for a chef knife. The only other difference that you might want to kind of check out for is there are two different types of knives in the sense of how they're made. There's a stamped knife versus a forged chef knife. Now, other than price difference, right? The stamp knife is usually a little bit more less in cost than the forged knife. How it handles is a little bit different. So a stamp knife is just like how it stands. They have these big rolls of steel, and they have it's like a cookie cutter, right? And they stamp the shape of their knives, and then they add their handles. Now, one of the benefits for those are sometimes those are really good, like beginner knives, or even like if someone's just starting to cook, because they're very light in weight, they're pretty low maintenance. And for the most part, unless you're using them every single day, they're pretty durable. So that's a good reason to start off with a stamp knives. Forged knives is they're taking a piece of metal, and with heat, they're shaping it and kind of making it to the shape of your chef knife. It's a little bit heavier to hold, but you do get a better quality in the sense of just how it's made. The tip, or the blade, if you will, does last longer than a forged knife. Obviously, the price also increases as well a little bit. And I find personally that a forged knife, because it's slightly heavier and how it's made, it actually has better balance from tip to the butt of the knife. So that just kind of alleviates the motion of when you're slicing and dicing. So those are really kind of the basic of the knife type of knives that I want to touch on. If you have any other questions as far as different type of knives or what you should have in your kitchen, I could talk about that in a little bit while we're going. So yeah, just hit me with any questions if we have them. Another thing, when you're caring for a knife, so a good rule of thumb is when you have your workstation, you always want to have your knife, your chef knife, at the top of the board, correct? I know it seems like common sense, but subconsciously, when we're moving and grooving and for our family and kids and the TV or what have you, sometimes things we forget. So creating that consistent habit, you're naturally always just going to put it at the top of your board. Obviously, for purposes of not keeping it to the end of the board, accidents happen. Somebody can walk by. If you have small children in the house, right, they can go over the counters. So over at the top of your workstation or your cutting board. Also, if you ever drop a knife, which you will, I've done it, it happens. Hands up and step back. Don't think about catching the chef knife, because I promise you the chef knife will win. It's not worth it. Even if there's a little dent in it, it's just not worth the hassle. So anytime you drop anything sharp, hands up, and you try to take a step back, and then you go from there. Cleaning a knife is pretty simple. All we do is we have a sponge, a little bit of Dawn dish soap, and water, and you kind of scrub it down. When you're drying your knife, you take your kitchen towel and you put the spine, which is not the blade, the spine part, kind of between your hands, and you pull and dry it. Same thing with the handle. You always want to put away your chef knives dried, right? You don't want any moisture on the blade because moisture is not good for anything for too long. And another thing is you want to keep in mind that even if certain knives say they are dishwasher safe, please do not put them in a dishwasher. There's just a lot of things that can happen in a dishwasher, especially if you have a full load. It can bring around. Some of the chemicals are just not good for the handles or the blade. It takes 2 seconds to hand wash. So just get into the habit of always hand washing your knife. And lastly, you never want to put your knife in a sink full of water, right? So even if I soak some of my dishes sometimes when I'm cooking, obviously, because some dishes need to be soaked for a little bit. You never want to throw your knife in there just because, God forbid, if somebody else comes, they see it, they reach in. That's how accidents can happen. So these little habits that you start to really build and maintain, it just becomes natural from just like walking, right, left. The same thing with kind of how you're handling your kitchen knife, your chef knife, as you will. Okay, so we got cutting boards. We got kind of the sizes and styles of the chef knife down. We got how to clean a knife. Any questions, any concerns? I don't think so. I think we're gonna be rocking and rolling. Just so you are aware, I do have my laptop in front of me and I am on gallery view. So once we start into slicing and dicing, that's how I can kind of keep an eye on you guys to see if I need to go faster, see if I need to go slower, see if I need to repeat something again. So just so you know. All right, so what I kind of want you to do now is I want everybody to get their station ready, have their cutting board, make sure your cutting board's stable, have your chef knife on the top of the cutting board, have your, I have a sheet tray on the side, because that is where we're gonna put all of our diced vegetables, or a platter, or if you don't have a platter or a sheet tray, a bowl, honestly. There's a couple of things that you can group together because they cook at the same time, at the same rate. So keep that in mind. And I want everybody to grab our vegetables. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna go over, I'm gonna show you how to hold a knife. I'm gonna show you how to stand. And then we're gonna do some mock rocking motions with our knives, just so everybody can kind of get the feel of how you should hold your knife and kind of where your body should be and how it should feel, okay? Now, I will say, if you've held your knife differently than I'm going to show you, that is okay. So the way that I will show you might feel a little weird. That is okay, okay? You might even get a little blister. That is totally normal, right? We're kind of retraining our hands to hold a knife differently than we might have before. So just kind of keep that in mind. And remember, it's not speed. It's consistency. So go a little bit slower, be more conscious with how you're standing, how you're holding, how you're cutting everything. Cool? We're gonna go after that, after we kind of play with our chef knives, which is kind of a dangerous sentence. We're gonna start cutting our vegetables. We're gonna begin with our celery, then our carrots, sweet potato, everyone's favorite, onions. We're gonna do our onions, then go to our garlic. If you have kale and parsley, you can keep that in the fridge just so it stays nice and cool. I don't want it to get all wilty in the meantime while we're doing everything else. For the most part, everything else should be golden. Cool? All right, so we got our vegetables. We got our knives, we got our trays, you got a bowl where to put some of your scraps, all right? And then if you do have a kitchen towel nearby, grab that just so that way you can kind of maintain a clean station. And a cool little tool that I know was optional on your packet is a bench scraper. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of tools and gadgets in the kitchen, but I do feel like there are certain tools that just make life a lot easier. And one of it is a bench scraper. So this particular one is a KitchenAid bench scraper. And it's really cool because it does have a ruler on the bottom, and it does kind of have a cheat sheet of, I don't know if you can see because of the glare, cheat sheets of measurements on the other side, but it has a couple of uses. The one thing that I honestly use it for the most is when I am in the middle of prepping my meal, because I can kind of scrape things off. So when I'm cleaning my cutting board, it's just an easy it's an easy way to clear my board. If I'm transferring transferring vegetables from one location to another, this helps because I'm able to scoop and pick up the vegetables and safely move it to another location. People tend to use their chef knife. I am definitely guilty of that. It's just not a safe practice, right? We're technically using our blade. We're kind of unnecessarily scraping the top of your cutting board, and anything could happen, right? It's just a little liability waiting to happen. So the best you can is to always to invest in these little tools that actually make the cooking process a little bit easier. So if you haven't thought about getting a bench scraper, get it. They're only a few bucks, they're not that expensive. And I promise you, you will love to use it all the time. Okay, so we have our cutting board, a sheet tray to land all of our cut vegetables, a bowl or a container. So we have a place to clear all of our scraps and skins and stuff that we're not using, a kitchen towel, your kitchen knife. I think that's what we need so far. Everyone's golden. I see everybody's walking. I'm just checking the gallery, making sure everyone's golden. All right, so first come, first serve. What we are going to do is I'm going to teach you how to hold a knife. So the anatomy of the knife, it's pretty simple. The top end, right, which is not sharp, this is called the spine of the knife. The sharp edge is actually called the blade of the knife. We have our tip, we have our handle. This thickness of the knife is called a bolster, and that's a good way to know if your knife has been stamped or forged, because if it's a forged knife, it will have a bolster of some sort, versus a stamped knife doesn't have this thickness bolster that kind of curves into the knife. So food for thought. The handle, the butt of the knife, we have, the edge of the knife and the tip of the knife. Pretty simple, right? Now, your hands. Let me know if anyone here is left hand dominant. Oh, we have one, yay. So everything I say, just do opposite. So just from there, but I will try to do my best to kind of show on the left-hand side, but it's literally, you'll see what I'm talking about. So we have some lefties. Do you know there are some chef knives specifically made for left-handed people? There are some brands out there. So definitely that's a huge help, because for some reason, the gods that be decided that the world is just right-handed preference, and I know it's not fair. So keep that in mind, but I will now make sure to kind of show you on the left side for certain things as well, okay? All right, so what we want to do for right hand or left hand dominant, we want to take our thumb and our pointer finger, and we're going to do a pinch grip, okay? So just watch first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to put it on one of the sides of the left-hand side of my knife, right over the bolster. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then I'm going to take my pointer finger and kind of curve around, right? It's technically not really holding my knife, but it's kind of hugging the blade. Now, what do I do with these three fingers, right? So now all I do is kind of take my middle ring and pinky and wrap them around the handle, all right? So you can kind of see, I have a nice chokehold on that knife, correct? I'm not holding the knife like this. I'm not holding the knife like this, right? There is no balance. You got to think about balance when it comes to some chef knives, especially steel, right? What is going to be balanced for you, for your body, for the knife, for the food? And it's pretty much going to be kind of right here, 3/4 of the way up, not technically halfway, but right there. And what this does is this chokehold, if you can see my fingers, There you go. Provides stability for me with the knife. It's nice and balanced, right? So when I'm slicing and dicing, I don't have to put pressure. Sometimes if you notice when if you're slicing something hard and you're really having to do force, you shouldn't have to. Your knife should guide you and kind of help you out with that force. All right. So we're just not utilizing the chef knife how we should. So we want to do a nice little choke hold on that knife. So, and that's pretty much it. Left hand side, this one's easy. I can definitely have no problem teaching this. It's the same thing. You kind of lay your thumb on the right side of your knife. You kind of curve your pointer finger, and then your other fingers are kind of wrapped around the handle. Now you might have to adjust. I will say my middle finger is curved. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's hitting kind of the edge of that bolster. That is okay because this is not sharp. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're kind of holding your knife. So everyone, I'm going to give you a second. Everyone, I'm going to give you a second and hold your chef knife. See if you can do it. So remember, you want to do that pinch grip. Good job, Marshall's doing great. Do that nice pinch grip. You want to keep in mind that your chef knife is technically a continuance of your arm, right? It's a continuance of you. So having a weird, hopefully nobody holds their knife like that, but having a weird way of holding it kind of makes it a little bit awkward. So we want to do that pinch grip. Now, I will say when we're working with minced garlic, we're gonna kind of change our grip a little bit, as well as obviously we're not doing it in this class because we're not filleting fish, but when we fillet meat, you do change your grip up a little bit, but you're also using a different type of knife for that. So in case you do see people doing that, and you're like, hey, last time I saw a chef fillet this, and they're using a different knife and it's a different technique. But for most majority of our cutting and our slicing and our dicing, it's the pinch grip. Okay. Now, what do we do with the other beautiful hands? This is called the claw hand, if you will. This hand is meant to hold your food in place, correct, right, while you're slicing and dicing. It's meant to kind of set you up where whatever you are slicing isn't moving around. Now, you don't technically want to hold anything flat like this, right? Why is that? Your cute little fingers are exposed. So a good rule of thumb is claw, right? You go, everyone make a little claw face, and we kind of set your fingers on top of your vegetable or whatever you're cutting. Now, don't feel that you have to hold it down with all of your might, right? Just a little force it will do. And if you notice, let's see if I can get it here. I have a little curve in my digits. So it's literally kind of like the top of my fingertips, right? So technically this first knuckle, sorry if you can't see it perfectly, this first knuckle helps guide my knife. Now, I'm not expecting everyone to get super close to your knuckle on this point. It's okay. It's okay to have a little bit of space, especially if you're learning. But eventually, with practice, you'll be able to kind of use this and kind of guide your cuts. So it's just a little bit easier. You're always a little bit more in control. That being said, it also kind of eliminates the problem with you lifting your knife up too high. Because if you're having to do that, you might be using the wrong knife, to be honest, to be cutting whatever you're cutting. But it's a nice little guidance, okay? So we got our pinch grip, we got our claw. How do we stand? The easiest way to learn, to help you learn the pinch grip and the claw effect is if you're facing your cutting board at 12 o'clock, correct? For my right-handed beautiful people, you want to turn your body to 2 o'clock, okay? For my left-handed beautiful person, you want to turn your body to 11 o'clock, all right? Now, I know that might be a little weird at first, but what that happens is I'm at 12 o'clock, I'm at 2 o'clock, and now I'm cutting. My knife should be parallel to the side of that cutting board, right? And I just opened up that room for my elbow and for my body. So I will always be able, it's actually a little bit more comfortable for you. You're not straining your body so much. So that just kind of keeps everything leveled. Now, you were a person that you want directly in front of your cutting board, that 2 o'clock kind of facing goes to 12. Well, then I'm going to start cutting at an angle, which is totally fine, to be honest. That is how I do it at home, but I am a professional chef, so it's slightly different. So if we can this evening, I would like everybody to make sure their body is facing 2 o'clock or 11 o'clock and kind of working on that stance, all right? So I want everyone to stand up, go to your cutting board, have your pinch grip on your chef knife, get your claw out and ready, and we're gonna mock cutting something. And all I want you to do is, I'm gonna do this just so you guys can see the knife. When you're cutting anything, what you wanna do is you kind of want that bolster, right, to kind of be a little bit higher than the tip, and you're gonna slice down, lift and slide back up, slice down, slide back, go forward, slide back, go forward, slide back, go forward, slide back. As you notice, I am not doing this, right? I am utilizing that full blade of that knife. That is what you want to do. Especially when we're gonna work with sweet potatoes, you're gonna see a difference of, instead of going that straight down on cutting, on being able to utilize that whole blade kind of going through. That's half the magic, to be honest. So, like I said, we want to lift up the bolster, pointers down, and then when we actually cut to slicing, it's going to go down and forward, back up, down and forward, up and up, high, down, forward, yeah, up and back, down and forward. All right. So essentially now I'm at 2 o'clock, my pinch grip, my claw, I'm doing that motion. If I take a peek at my elbow, your elbow should be kind of going in a circle, right? Everybody look at their elbow. I'm like, oh, that's kind of right. It's a nice natural motion. Voila, you guys are professionals. Look how easy that was. But that will actually help with taking any strain with cooking, with cutting anything, using your knife skills. We tend to be a little bit more tense or hunched over or kind of be awkward, right? When all in reality, we just want to create a tight workspace and stand the way we're supposed to stand, hold and focus, and it makes things a lot easier. All right, so pinch grip, claw, 2 o'clock, bolster up, down and forward to slice. The knife is always on your board. Lift it back up, down, forward, back up, down, forward, back up, down, forward, okay? And once you start going in motion, it just should be a nice, your elbow should be kind of going in circles, and it feels good. Any questions, concerns, issues? I don't think so. I think we're ready to start cutting. So I am going to wipe off my board because there is a little bit of wood sediment now that I just sliced the board and nothing else. Kind of give that a clean. One thing I will say that I did not touch on is sharpening knives. Professionals are out there, ladies and gentlemen. I personally use Northwest Cutlery as well. They don't charge a lot to sharpen knives, but they have a professional kind of work on the chef knife. I know other real stores do it as well. I'm pretty sure everybody has seen this, a honing steel, especially if you buy like a full cutting block or what have you. A honing steel will be provided for you. I will say a honing steel is a phenomenal tool to upkeep your knife. It does not sharpen your knife, okay? That being said, you should get into the habit. I recommend you try to use, every time you're going to use your chef knife, I don't care if it's for an apple, anytime you're gonna use your chef knife, you wanna give it a few passes on the honing steel. And all this does is, if you were to take, this is kind of dorky information, so I apologize, but if you were to take a microscope and really focus in on the blade, you'll see all these little burrs, right? All these little burrs, steels that are fibers that are going through, and as you're cutting, sometimes those steels naturally start bending, and what honing does is honing wakes them up again, right? Sharpening professionally, when you take them professionally to get them sharpened, they actually remove a whole little layer of that steel, right? Which is needed. Like I said, I get mine sharpened as well. But by doing this, every time you're using your dish, at least when you're making dinner or what have you, a heavier meal, This just gives you a long lasting life to your chef knife. So that now you don't have to sharpen them as much. And a sharp knife is a safe knife. I know that might sound weird, but when you have a sharp knife, you are technically using less force to cut things because your chef knife is providing that work. So therefore, accidents, if something slips, right, the accidents do happen, but they definitely decrease in that. So a sharp knife is a safe knife. So if you do have this, and if you're not into a habit, there's a couple ways of just kind of setting the tip down, putting your hand on the handle and kind of just at an angle, kind of doing just a few passes. It doesn't need to be 50 of them, just 3 on each side and you're done. And if you can do that every time, at least you make your main dishes, I promise you, life will be grand. So that being said, we have everything. We have everything ready. Everybody, let's grab some celery. So, beautiful celery. We are starting off light, ladies and gentlemen. Celery is simple. It's easy. Like I said, first watch me make these cuts and then I will set you free. What we want to do with the celery is, I believe it says a medium dice, but I want to focus on some certain cuts. So we're going to do half moons, which is really easy because celery just allows you to do a half moon. So a classic particular half moon is, my feet are standing at 2 o'clock. I have that pinch grip, right? My claw, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me set up the other camera. Look at me. I'm getting all excited and I haven't even set up the other camera yet. Give me 1 second. There you go. And Andy, if you can, oh, beautiful. Okay. Let me do this. How is that for everybody? Better? Perfect. Okay. So we have our celery. We're not going to be using the beautiful roots. You can save this. A lot of our vegetable scraps, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you're more than welcome to save. You can put it in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. They can help you with vegetable stock, making it at a later point. Once you start like filling up a whole bag of vegetables, it can take you a couple weeks, but it's so worth it because once it's full, you can really make the homemade vegetable stock. And the tops of the celery, I like to use as garnish, and I always add those to my salad. So just FYI. So I'm at, I know you can't see my feet, but I'm at 2 o'clock. Claw hand. I'm going to slice off the top. Pretty easy. And now all half moons is, remember, I'm going to be utilizing pretty much this amount of my blade to make my slices. I don't know if you can see that in slow motion. And I'm purposely keeping my claw away from the knife just so you guys have a better view. But I'm like 1/4 of an inch. Now, the $1 million question is, when I get to a point where my knife and my ingredient is a little bit further than where I'm standing, do I push the food in like this? Or do I reset myself? If I'm standing here now, right, because I cut all that, do I then take a second, stop, and go back to where I started? Is it the first answer or is it the second answer? What do you guys think?
I'm going to guess the second.
Woohoo! The second answer, yes. I don't know if you've noticed, I have a theme going on for setting yourself up for success, but certain things that little movement takes what, a millisecond. So it's a lot safer because if you start feeding your knife that food, an accident can happen, right? Sometimes the easier way isn't the right way. So essentially, you just want to take that millisecond and always set yourself up. So when you're able to kind of cut, fine. Now we get to the end. You put that in your compost. And now you have your half moons. So I'm going to let you guys go free. Please start cutting your celery. And it's 3 celery stalks. So as you guys are doing yours, I am going to continue to cut them to cut my other 2. So keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, Your stance, where are your feet? It should be at 2 o'clock or at 11 o'clock. Pinch grip your knife, have a nice good balance with your knife. Claw hand, we want to take off the tip of the celery, get rid of that. And we want to slide our knife, right? Slide forward, down and forward, up and back, down and forward, up and back, down and forward, up and back. And then once you get to a point that's kind of uncomfortable, reset yourself. If you wanted to cut, make your celery a little bit prettier, especially if you're like making a salad with celery, instead of doing the classic, just straight perpendicular cut, all you can do is a bias cut, which essentially all that is kind of angling your knife differently. So I'm standing in front of my cutting board, and the celery itself is at that same, it's parallel to the bottom of the cutting board. And instead of my knife being at 90 degrees, I'm kind of going the other way. So then that way you got kind of cute angles. So just food for thought. And if you like to cut another celery at a bias, a different way, just so then you can practice, I recommend that. But each cut that you make, you kind of want to make sure the rest is the same size, right? Especially when we're cooking anything, because at the end of the day, that's just going to provide different cooking times for your ingredients. So down forward, up back, your blade is never leaving that cutting board. Reset yourself. Reset yourself. Claw hand, pinch grip, feet at 2 o'clock. Reset yourself. Do my bench scraper and pick up the rest of my celery. There you go. How's everyone looking? I think we're still working. Perfect. Got some thumbs up. See, easy peasy, right? That's not that difficult. So now our next ingredient is going to be carrots. So what I'm going to have everyone do is actually let's peel our carrots before we cut. So one of the tools that I'm using to peel the carrots is like a U peeler or a Y peeler, essentially. These are pretty great in the sense of how you use it versus that single blade peeler that's been done. It's just more ergonomical to your hand. It just makes it a little bit easier. I'm all about finding things to make certain processes less stressful on your body, if that makes sense. But I hope you don't mind. I saw this beautiful, beautiful purple carrot and I wanted it. So therefore I'm throwing a purple carrot in. So one thing with carrots is to peel or not to peel. That really depends on where you purchase your carrots. Obviously, anything organic is always great, but even with organic, you just want to make sure you are washing the carrots very well. There is a lot of vitamins in the skins of the carrots, so sometimes it's just preference. Sometimes it's just easier to peel, but if you rather use the whole carrot and not peel, so then just take a little bit of extra time in cleaning your carrot properly. But for the purpose of this class, I wanted to show the cool Y peeler. So we are peeling the carrots. And what's really cool is while you're peeling the carrots, if you keep going, you can make little vegetable noodles. Obviously, you know, it's just a nice little, for like carrot salad, it's just a nice different type of cut. It's edible, but I find out that making these cuts, I have a couple of nieces and nephews, and it's so easy to trick them to kind of eat healthy. And I realized the trick is just to cut it or present it in a totally different way than usual. But they do like it when I make what they say carrot spaghetti. That's what they call it. So now I do have 3 different sizes of carrots, and that's because that's the grocery store. That's life. Every carrot, every vegetable for the most part are going to come in all different shapes and sizes. Sometimes they're thinner, sometimes they're thicker, sometimes they're odd shape. So it's just a matter of thinking, of adjusting certain ways to actually cut your carrots. So how are we looking? Is everyone cool if I start showing you how to slice this carrot, what I'm looking for? I'll give it a second. For this particular, for the recipe, we are using 3 carrots. It says peeled in medium dice, but instead of that, I thought we can take what we did here, which was the half moon, and do a quarter moon for the carrots. I just think visually it looks pretty, and it kind of helps in working with a harder vegetable. Okay, so we have our carrot, right? The root, the tip, obviously these 2 things, I am just going to remove from the equation. Now, let's see how I can get this on here, hold on. So with carrots, as you can see, this is pretty wide, correct? A habit is, and I'm only doing this to show you guys, is to take your knife and to go straight down sometimes. And if you notice, by doing that, doesn't it make it a little bit harder? Don't you usually have to kind of apply more pressure when you put your chef knife on there and just push straight down? The trick is to angle your knife. So we're going kind of to the middle of that blade, right? So you're gonna come at an angle, and then instead of just going straight down, you're gonna slide through. Okay, doing that slide through actually minimizes that force that you need, and it slides through the vegetable a lot better. So for you guys, I'm gonna start, like I said, here, and then I'm just gonna go straight down. And there you go. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind when you're working with your vegetable. Another thing is, if you can see the size of this carrot compared to the size of your knife, right? The blade itself is kind of the same size. That's not essentially what you want. You kind of want to work with vegetables that are kind of half the size of your knife, technically a blade, just because it creates a softer, easier way to use that vegetable. And all it is this little funny tip. So I'm just going to remove the tip, and now I have my carrots. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is, actually, this carrot is still a little bit too big for my liking, so I'm going to cut it in half. Same thing, the blade's kind of angled, and then I go down. Now I have these 2 beautiful carrots. So now what I want you guys to do is, after you do that, we are going to cut it in half. So I'm going to stand differently so I can show the camera better. So while we're cutting it in half, I am going to do the bridge grip, which all it is I take the tip of my knife and I kind of set it at the top of the carrot, and then I take my thumb and my pointer finger and I hold the top of that carrot, if you can see that. And same thing, I'm going to angle my knife right up and slide it down. Now we have 2 halves, right? Essentially, we always want to create a flat surface when working with vegetables, right? We don't want things to be rolling around because that does not create a safe environment. So I'm going to do it to my other one. Tip kind of set at the top of the carrot, take my thumb and my pointer finger to kind of create a bridge and slide that knife down. And now I have 2 halves, another half, right? So then now all I want to do is, and I'm lining them up because I'm going to cut them again half lengthwise. Same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now you have all these sticks, right? So now I want you guys to take is, after you have your sticks, and I want you to notice something. You notice that the vegetable that I'm going to dice is in the middle. The ones that are prepped to dice but are not ready to get diced are on my left-hand side. So for Marshall, it would be the opposite. So yours will be on the right-hand side. And then my finished product will be on my right-hand side. You want to create this assembly line. So technically, if I was doing this at home, I would get all these other carrots ready to this point before I start dicing. That actually speeds up that process when you are working with vegetables and cutting, and it is a time saver. It also helps with cleanliness, and it just kind of keeps your body in that same motion. So I have my ones that are ready, but not yet. And then I have one that's on the line. And all I'm gonna do is quarter moons. I'm gonna do about, this is a thicker carrot, so I'm gonna do the same as kind of a 1/4 inch and kind of do my slicing motion. And then you technically have a 1/4 of a moon, okay? So now I have all my sliced, my next two, same thing, my claw, my slicing motion, and you keep going, move it over, so forth, so on. Any questions? Okay, off. You guys are free to go. Please start cutting your carrots. So
No
for-
question, just a comment. Those are really nice
Yeah.
carrots. I never saw them.
I know.
Killer.
Yeah, they're really pretty. We actually got these from Whirlpool Farms. They're organic, and there was one, and I said it's mine. So yeah, these are really pretty. And what's really cool about certain dishes, honestly, if you're able to get different colored vegetables, that does make a difference in your dish, right? It just adds a different pop of color. They do bleed just a little bit, as you can see, but not as bad as like beets. But yeah, but thank you. They are really pretty. So again, don't forget 2 o'clock stance, pinch grip your knife, claw with your other hand. You are doing a sliding motion. Sometimes a piece of your vegetable or your fruit gets back after you dice it, it gets back in the cutting line. That happens. It's a-okay. So I'm gonna take another carrot, same thing. Let me turn my knife a little bit. So with the thicker side, you wanna angle the tip of your knife a little bit forward, 45 degrees, and you're sliding through so it doesn't cause so much pressure. Again, size of the carrot to my knife, I wanna go in half. After that, I'm gonna put the tip of my knife on my carrot, bridge grip, go in half, do it to the other side, in half. And then same thing. So now we have these. Now, so this happens a lot, right? We have the thicker side of the carrots that are nice and thick. So I was able to get 4 sticks. These, I don't need to cut them in half, right? It's just, they're not gonna be a total 1/4 like how I wanted, but it's okay. It's just, the soup's still gonna be delicious. Anytime that happens, you just throw the word rustic on it and then it's fine. That is what rustic means. So no harm, no foul. Don't forget about your stance. Sorry if I'm a broken record, but I want to make sure you guys are feeling nice and confident. All right. How are we looking? How is everyone's carrots looking? Let me give my area a wipe down. And that's why it's kind of nice to always have a kitchen towel by your workstation, because honestly, it's just a quick wipe down next to after each vegetable or each thing you're cutting. The whole cleaning as you go thing, I've actually learned it with my mother because I was her assistant when she cleaned, and I realized if I cleaned as she was going, it was a lot easier for me than cleaning at the very end when all I wanted to do was go watch TV. So And now it's just part of my life. How are we looking on carrots? Am I cool to move on? Do we still catching up? I think we're golden. All right, so stop me if you guys want me to give you a few minutes, but let's go to, what are we doing next? Let's do sweet potatoes. That's another hard vegetable. So same thing with your sweet potatoes, grab your peeler and let's peel them. Get a nice peel, take that skin off. Now, sweet potatoes, just like carrots, can be hard to cut and slice, especially if you get a batch that's just on the drier side. The last time we had this class, we had a sweet potato that was super dry, which created a great talking point sometimes. But so let's see. I think it's, let me just check the recipe. It's one medium sweet potato, perfect. So we have our peeled sweet potato, all right? And again, stop me if you guys need a few more seconds or a few more minutes. We are gonna do a medium dice to this sweet potato, okay? So first thing we're going to do is, remember, watch real quick. I'm just gonna take off both ends. Okay, so essentially to get this dice, I still want it to be a little bit more flatter. It still moves around for my personal liking. So what I like to do is sometimes you'll see people suggest to cut like a little sliver off, which is fine because then it creates a nice flat surface. Honestly, if I can, I will like to try to cut off as thick as I can use that to make a dice, if that makes sense. So instead of doing a little sliver, I actually want to do a nice 1/4 inch, because essentially I can still use this for my dices. So that's just a rule of thumb. I just learned it just doesn't waste anything then. Okay, so now I've made that cut. So now I am on a flat surface. This bad boy is not going anywhere. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to create planks, right? So the same thing I did with the carrot, I'm gonna angle the tip onto the sweet potato. The back end of the blade is gonna be higher. We're gonna go down, okay? Then I do about the same width, which is like a 1/4 inch. Now, sometimes things are just tough, where I'll then take my other hand and kind of help guide that top of that knife. That is a-okay. I am not, I don't know if you can see, I know my hands probably look huge on camera. They are not. So again, now, what do we do with this weird one, right? Because it can get kind of sketchy. You might not feel safe, but it's the same thing with, remember, our bridge grip. So I kind of take it down and do a little bridge grip right here. So I am putting a little force on here just when I have it secure. Move my hand, and now we have our planks. So now I created my beautiful planks. Now what we want to do with our planks is create sticks. So I'm going to line them up. I'll line 2 up so you can see. And the same way, I'm going to create kind of my 1/4 inch. Sometimes you're going to get these odd shaped ones. It's a soup, will be okay. We are not a linea, which they just get nominated, but there is a lot of ways to making things making each piece of vegetable the same shape. So I'm all for a more home style look, more rustic look. So just keep that in mind. We are not in culinary school. I'm not going to take a ruler out because that is what they do. And then same here, it's kind of a different angle. All right, so now I made planks into sticks. Right, now I'm going to turn the sticks over so it's kind of going, and then as you guys can kind of figure out, now I'm going to start making my dices. Now, you might want to get ambitious and pile a whole bunch of them up. don't. Keep in mind that once you start piling more up, it's harder to manage. I've always, even at home, have been able, anytime I am cubing a sweet potato, 4 is my magic number, but I'm able to hold them a lot better. My cuts are more consistent, and for me, honestly, it's just faster to do that than trying to manage my sweet potato. So after we peel up the sweet potato, we cut a piece off so we can have a flat surface. Then we cut planks. Then we cut matchsticks. Then we dice. Any questions? Let's get rocking and rolling. I am going to continue with my sweet potato. So feel free to look up if you need to, but you guys have been golden thus far. So I don't see why you would. Now again, remember your 2 o'clock beat. Pinch grip your chef knife. Claw your ingredients. Listen to that sound of that blade cutting the vegetables onto the board. It's actually quite poetic. You have your little assembly line going. Anytime you can create an assembly line and get the vegetables all at the same place, it does cut your time dramatically while prepping dinner. And what's really cool with certain vegetables, in case you guys weren't aware, is most vegetables actually are fine if you prepare it a day or so in advance. So if it was like, let's say it was something tonight and I had workshop, so I would have prepped everything yesterday, so that way all I had to do when I go home was to make the soup, if for some reason I couldn't make the soup yesterday. Any questions? How is everyone feeling? Got a couple head nods. Now check your fingers to make sure there's no blisters forming. If there is a blister forming, you might be holding on, gripping your knife just a little bit too hard. I'm going to quickly rinse my chef knife just because that sweet potato is sticky. Clear my board. I'm going to give a quick rinse to my hands, so give me 1 second. And then we are going to work on our favorite, onions. All right.
If you're talking, we're not hearing you, or I'm not anyway.
I do apologize, folks. I'm gonna try to, it seems like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties on Chef Kat's end. We're gonna go ahead and try to fix that right now. Our apologies. Give me 1 moment. All right, sorry about this, folks. We're getting everything reset again. Sometimes Zoom has a mind of its own, so we're gonna go ahead and get Chef Cat operational once again. Thank you for your patience as we do.
Hello, hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, Oh, sorry about that. The beautiful technology. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. My phone got disconnected. All right, we're back in. I just think they're like onions. Oh no. Okay, so what will really help with the onion is honestly a sharp knife. It just minimizes the way it cuts through an onion. Obviously, once the onion gets cut, enzymes gets released into the air, hits your eyes. That's why you cry. If you wear contacts, then yay, because it does provide a little bit layer of protection. There are onion goggles because some people do have it really bad when it comes to dealing with onions, but just kind of keep that in mind. So the first thing that we're going to do about onions is we're going to have a medium dice. So again, watch before you do. We have the root end of the onion and the tip end. So what do I want this to be? I want it to be on a flat surface. So actually, I'm gonna cut, no, see, I like it my way. So I'll kind of go in half, bridge, grip, and we're gonna go from North Pole to South Pole, if that makes sense. From the tip to the root. We never wanna cut an onion through the equator, if you will, unless you're making onion rings or for a particular slice. But for the most part, for all dices, you wanna go from north to south. Now, I have my half of onions. Set them flat. I'm gonna cut the tip, turn it around. I'll do the root in a second. Cut the tip, get that out. Now, for the root, I am going to cut off a little bit of the root, but I'm not going to go completely too deep into the onion, and I will show you what I mean. So you can see here that the root is technically still attached, correct? All I did was remove the little hairs, correct? We want the root to be attached. That will help you dramatically. Okay, so now I peel the onions. I find this way is the easiest way to peel the onions as well. Okay. And we're almost there, guys. You guys have been doing so great. Peel the onions. Okay, so medium dice. What we want to do is we're going to cut kind of on 3 planes, if you will. I am going to do a couple slices this way. Then I'm going to slice this way. Then I'm going to slice this way. Okay, so what I have is when you cut parallel from the bottom of the board, you want to take a couple of your fingers and lightly kind of hold the top of the onion just to make a couple of slices, right? If this makes you a little nervous, you don't have to do this part. To be honest, you will get a beautiful medium dice just doing the 2 ways versus this. What this does is, sorry, I have to move it closer to my board. By cutting this way, it creates just more consistent dices all throughout versus just doing it the other way, which is totally fine too, okay? So again, and I'm moving this closer to my board. I'm gonna do 1 slice and 2, right? I didn't go all the way through the root, they're just some nice slices. Now, I am going to, these lines all throughout the onions are great guiding points for me. So I'm going to use more of the tip part of my knife, and I'm going to go down to the cutting board, down to the cutting board, down to the cutting board. And I don't know if you can see, but my tip is not going through the root. And you are going to get little pieces of onion that come apart. That's totally fine. My skin was too slippery. There you go. So now we have these little blooming onions type of feel. That's essentially what we want, right? And it's still connected to the root. And then now all you do is you face it the other way. This is where I really love my pinky and my thumb because it kind of helps to keep the ends together. So technically my claw is a little bit more spread out to the onion, and the same thing we go down. Now, sometimes those edges move. That is okay. It happens. It happens more than you know. The professionals alike as well. So don't fear. Once you get to this point, you want to boop, flip your onion. I'll do that again. Ready? With the noise. Boop, flip that onion down. So then that way it just creates, this top layer is annoying me. It just creates a little bit easier of a motion. So you're able to utilize all of the onion. And then voila, you have your diced onion. Now, I don't want you to go back and mince and dice this because you're just releasing more of those enzymes, and that is why we cry. Questions? Good. You are free to cut the onions. While you're doing that, I'm gonna just do the other half. I've been wearing, I just got a new pair of glasses, ladies and gentlemen, and I specifically wear my contacts today because I thought of the onion. Because since I've been cooking with my glasses, I realized that my eyes are very sensitive. But there is such a thing as onion goggles. I am not lying. You can purchase them. Some people, there's just, the reaction is too much. But if you do put your onion for just a little bit before you cut it into the fridge, it kind of cools those enzymes down. It won't take away the crying factor completely, but it definitely helps a little bit. Remember, we want to cut it in half. We peel, we take off the tip, we remove a little bit of the root. We slice, then we dice, then you flip the onion down with having the root side up, so you're able to get the rest of the onion. Beautiful onions. Now, KitchenAid does have a 5 cup chopper. That's amazing, and it's so cute, and it's nice and small, so that also does wonders for your onions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we just have, I think, like 2 more things and we're golden. So next up is going to be our garlic. How are we looking? Looking pretty good. Let's see, give me 1 second. I'm gonna peel the garlic. Got the garlic. Let's fix this here. Okay, so we have our garlic. Sorry about that. I'm just flipping the camera. Okay, so we have our beautiful garlic. Easiest way to peel the garlic is you take a clove, you take the biggest width of your knife, you put it on top of your garlic, you make a fist, and you pound down the knife. And what that does, that breaks the garlic skin off, and it's just an easier peel. I know there's other hacks like putting it in a jar and shaking it. Essentially, that's just providing more pressure there, so it works the same way. But to be honest, for some reason, this way is just super therapeutic for me, so I like to keep it. So what we're going to do, and what's nice is since we are mincing garlic, crushing it, it's already starting the process for you. For 1,000,000 points, which I don't know why I'm saying that because we don't have a point system of a game here, is does anyone know how to get the garlic smell out of your hands? Anyone has some cool tricks?
I've heard lemon.
Yes, citrus. Citrus works well. That is a good guess. Citrus works. And honestly, ready to blow your mind, stainless steel. It's a little weird. So especially if you have a stainless steel sink, you want to wet your hands a little bit and rub your hands on your sink, rinse, and then use soap and water. and that the steel kind of like magnates the smell off. There is such a thing as like steel soap that they sell. So then that's essentially what's the same idea. So I am going to remove some of the roots of the garlic. Get that out of there. So now with mincing, right? It can be tedious. If you have a garlic press, have no shame. Use the garlic press if you like. Promise you. If I was at home, I would be using my garlic press as well. But it is pretty cool to learn how to mince garlic, especially if you like making like garlic paste. It's just a cool little trick. You start off with making slices to your garlic, like normal. So you're using the classic pinch grip, right? I'm just kind of going through. No big deal. Going through. There you go. I have a harder piece of garlic. Get that out of the way, right? And then I kind of turn them and do kind of another run through. Same thing with that pinch grip. Just kind of breaking up the big pieces. And then now, what I like to do is instead of using that pinch grip, I kind of hold the handle and with lightly with my thumb and my pointer finger, so it's really loose. And then I just go back and forth. My other hand is on the top of my knife and I just go back and forth. I don't know if you can see that, but you keep doing this for a few minutes and that natural weight of that knife helps. And technically my feet are at 12 o'clock. No wonder why it was hard. I have a root in here. Technically, my feet are at 12 o'clock stance and my knife is parallel to the bottom of the board. And I just go back and forth. Now, a cool little hack is if you add a little bit of kosher salt to this, that salt does a couple of things. One, it takes the moisture from the garlic, so it kind of helps with the stickiness with the garlic. Two, it seasons the garlic and it kind of helps break up that garlic. So a little bit of salt on here also goes a long way. But see, now I am mincing. So my holding my knife is slightly different. And I mince garlic and it smells delicious. All right, so beautiful garlic. Boom. I love it. I believe for the soup, it's, give me 1 second. It's 3 cloves of garlic. If you are making the garlic bread, I think that's 4 more cloves. So just do the cloves together and a little bit and separate it out. But now I have the garlic. I'm not going to put it on my sheet. Oh, actually, yes, I am. I lied. I'm just going to put it on the bottom of that sheet tray. All right. We're moving and we're grooving. All we have left is the kale, which is simple, and the parsley. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to start turning on your pots and starting the process of cooking your soup, you're more than welcome to now, just because the kale is super simple to demonstrate, and so is the parsley. So please feel free. Some people might not have worked with kale, so I just like to kind of show a little bit of the kale. And I have the cutest kale, by the way. And they're so adorable. They're not as white as I've had before. But kale, love it or hate it. I actually do love kale. It's just a matter of how you use the kale, massage the oil and vinegar into the kale, but it's pretty phenomenal to use. I know it can kind of get tough, a little bit bitter, but it just needs a little bit of extra love. So one way to peel kale is I like to take the root end of the stem and I like to peel a little bit off the stem and I pull through. All this is edible. This not so much, but you can use a little bit of this in like your vegetable stock if you were making vegetable stock. So you continue the line, peel a little bit, kind of go through. There you go. I'm gonna do one more, a little bit, go through. Oops. Now, when it comes to dicing the kale, I like to do bite-sized dices or cuts, I should say, with the kale, just because you don't want to bite into something and have a really long piece of kale, correct? It's just not pleasant. These are tiny, which they're so adorable, but I do like to do a quick cut in half. And all I do, honestly, is just do nice bite-sized pieces, kind of go through, reset, and you have your kale. Use as much of it or as little of it as you want. This kale goes at the end in your soup. So put that aside, keep that in mind. And the last thing is the parsley, which is essentially a lot easier. With the parsley, I have a little bit here. What's really nice with parsley and like cilantro, some of the stems, especially if they're not as thick, are pretty edible. And to be honest with you, I probably would use this. I'm a huge cilantro fan. I grew up with cilantro my whole life. So I try to use everything as I can. And what's really cool is if you just want to use more of the leaves of the parsley, you can totally use the stems for like a pesto or for something else. And what's nice is this process, not to sound cheesy, is super therapeutic for me because I'm able to kind of pick it off the stem of what I'm using. And sometimes this miscellaneous kind of tasks can be very therapeutic, or at least for me. I kind of see the beauty in all the culinary that I can. So it kind of helps me. But essentially, you just kind of want to gather them up. And with herbs, here's a trick, especially if you have soft herbs like these, you want to bunch them, right? It doesn't look so pretty. It looks like I'm just hassling the parsley, but you kind of want to bunch them all together because it's going to create a force. So then that way it's just easier to kind of mince and kind of rough chop and go through. And you can see my hand, I'm not really grabbing onto anything because it's just parsley. So I'm just using it as a kind of a guidance. And there you have your parsley. Okay. And last but not least, sorry, I lied. I said that was the last thing. There's one more thing, and I promise you that is it, is the bread. So if you are making the garlic bread, there is a way to cross-hatch cut your bread. So I have a nice bowl. We actually made this in-house. One of our other chefs, Jackie, shout out to Jackie. I think it's beautiful. Let me grab my bread knife. We have our bread knife too. A serrated knife is amazing. It's not just for bread. You can use this to cut anything with a hard surface, such as a tomato, an orange. It makes life a little bit easier. So get yourself a serrated knife if you don't have one. But essentially what you want to do is we want to make our cuts not going through the bread. Okay, so I'm going down one way. I'm going about, it's about 1 inch apart. Kind of going through, kind of going through, kind of going through, one more, right? So now we have this beautiful cut. And then since I went that way, I want to go the other way, right? So I kind of turn it. This is how it was. Now I'm just kind of angling it differently, and then the same way, kind of going through, kind of going through. And it can get a little tricky depending on how big of that bread you got. So when you're making the garlic butter, what you're gonna do is you're gonna kind of pour the garlic butter in all these crevices. And give me 1 second. When you have the finished product, ta-da, it kind of looks like this. So everything's baked through, as you can see. You're able to kind of rip it off. Oh, it's kind of hot still. And you kind of have your garlic pieces. This is great, obviously, with the soup, or you can kind of have it with other dishes, just because this is actually a really phenomenal dish. The fact that we cook the garlic in white wine takes the bitterness from the wine, from the garlic, and it just makes it really tasty. So we can go to the other view, Andy, unless we have any other questions. Yay, how did we do? I know that was a lot of information your way, but I really do hope you guys enjoyed the class. I hope you were able to get a few tips out of it, at least being able to hold a knife or just feeling more confident in your culinary adventures. I promise you, just practice, practice, practice your stance, your pinch grip, really setting yourself up with each ingredient for success so you have your little assembly line. But at the end of the day, look at this beautiful, this tray is already just picture worthy and I haven't even cooked anything. So keep that in mind. Other than that, if you are making the soup right now, follow the the steps in the recipe packet. This is a good time to turn on your oven. If you are making the garlic bread, it doesn't need to be heated up so much, and this does not take that long to get warm and kind of have that butter melted. So I appreciate all of you guys from the bottom of my heart for joining me. We're very lucky to have you guys and being able to instruct you guys on knife skills. If you have any more questions or maybe something you just don't remember it covered, remember that Andy will be sending you the recording later on this evening. But please, please, please feel free to email us so we can answer any of your questions. But thank you so much, and I do appreciate you. And I'll toss it back to Andy. I hope you guys enjoyed the soup.
Thank you. It's very good.
Well, thank you so much, Chef Kat. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I really hope you enjoy your soup. I hope you learned something. Also, we'd love to see how you did too. Feel free, if you'd like, send us emails, pictures of how things turned out. If you're on social media, go on Instagram and like us, or on Facebook, you can like us at World of Whirlpool. We'd love that. And you're also going to be receiving a survey. We would love to hear from you. You'll get that a little bit later on. All right. I'm going to toss it over to Jasmine if she has any parting words for us this evening.
Thanks, Andy. I don't think I have anything. That was a great cooking demo, and I speak for myself where I learned a lot, and I do see some head nodding. So I really appreciate this partnership and doing these cooking demos. And thank you, everybody who was here and got to spend the evening with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yay, thank you guys.
All right, everybody. From the World of Whirlpool, I wish you the greatest night. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.